When Elizabeth returned to her hotel room, she didn't cry. She just sat by the window and took off her high heels, slowly as if she were taking off her armor. She looked at her phone, a dozen emails from the board, a message from Sir Donovan about his custom mineral water preferences, and a message from her mother. Have you talked to your brother? Don't be proud. Be kind. She smiled. For her, this wasn't easy, this vulnerability, but maybe it never had to be perfect, just honest. That night, she called an emergency meeting with her leadership team. Effective immediately, she said, we're launching a new division, Carter Experiences, and we're doing it Nathan's way. There were confused faces, questions, objections. But Elizabeth was as tall as ever. She didn't imitate her brother. She respected him. And for the first time in years, she felt like herself, not a statue cast in Charles Carter's image. Catherine Carter, heart of the home, their mother, Catherine, had always been quiet, a presence in the Carter empire, offering hugs when needed, advice when asked, support even when not acknowledged. But she had watched her children fall apart. Two Thanksgivings without both of them at the table. One Christmas she cried in the kitchen while carving the roast. Now, seeing them together again, hesitant, hurt, honest, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. That dinner was a mess. The lamb was overcooked, wine spilled, someone broke a plate. But Nathan and Elizabeth laughed. They told old stories. Nathan showed him a picture of his new team. Elizabeth teased him about his linen shirts. Their mother just sat there and listened, tears in her eyes. I remember this, she whispered. Nathan leaned down and kissed her forehead. Me too, Mom. Family. Torn, then mended. The Carters had built on a legacy they had nearly destroyed. But now, in a modest kitchen, with cracked tiles and mismatched wine glasses, they remembered something more important. Family didn't exist for tradition. It existed for love. That night, they made a pact. No more missed holidays. No more corporate silence. No more treating each other like titles. They were Nathan, Elizabeth, and Catherine, and that was enough. Two roads, one respect. Months passed. Wander Soul Retreats expanded to Morocco. Carter Legacy launched its first emotional journey experience in Tuscany, co-designed by Elizabeth and Nathan, anonymously, of course. They didn't speak every day. Sometimes weeks went by. But on Nathan's birthday, a box arrived. Inside, a custom journal. To fire from steel, keep building. He smiled. Across the ocean, Elizabeth Carter, president, sister, survivor, closed her laptop, looked out at the horizon and whispered, Thank you, Nathan. I didn't expect applause. As I stepped off the stage in Singapore, the spotlight still warm on my face, I felt it. Not pride, not vindication, but something deeper. Peace after 2 years of turmoil, pain, silence, and reinvention. I had finally stepped into the light on my own terms. There was no Carter. There was no safety net. It was just me, my words, my brand, my truth. Backstage, I sat in a quiet corner, watching my team pack up our booth, our little oasis of emotional travel in a convention center of spreadsheets and stony faces. Then I heard it, the familiar click of high heels. Elizabeth. She stood a few feet away, hesitant, her hands clasped behind her back, as if she wasn't sure whether to hug me or reprimand me. "You built something real," she said softly. "Something human." I nodded. "I don't know if I can." "You can. You did. I underestimated you." I wanted to say something witty or smug or poetic, but the lump in my throat stopped me. Instead, I whispered, "Thank you, Liz." She smiled, a rare smile. No one has called me that in years. We stood there, awkward and warm in the same breath. Years of silence cracked like thin ice beneath us. "I won't be back," I said, just to be clear. "I know," she replied. "That's not why I'm here." She reached into her bag and handed me a small, old notebook. I recognized it. It was Dad's. "His diary?" I whispered. Elizabeth nodded. "He wrote about both of us, about how proud he was, even if he didn't say it." I flipped through the pages filled with memories of our childhood, building Lego castles in the lobby, her rearranging the staff's schedules when she was 12, then a note in Dad's shaky handwriting. "Nathan is the fire that lights the room. Elizabeth is the steel that keeps it burning. They'll burn the house down or build a future together." Tears welled in my eyes. I looked up and she was gone. But before she disappeared into the crowd, she turned back. "Come home for dinner. Mom's cooking lamb." I walked out of the tower that day not just unemployed, but uninvited. From my own family, my legacy, my name. And it wasn't just Elizabeth and me in the fallout. It was everyone around us, the staff, the board, our mother, even the people we once called allies. Carter Legacy Hotels became a battlefield. On one side was Elizabeth, disciplined, surgical, and commanding. She restructured departments, slashed budgets, and consolidated control. Her vision was global expansion with strict identity, elegance, privacy, tradition. Because even though I was gone, my influence hadn't disappeared. My campaigns had reshaped public perception. Guests still ask for rooms they saw on Instagram. Influencers still tagged our hotels with "Live the Legend," a slogan I had created. Elizabeth hated it, so she set about scrubbing me out. Marla Jennings, our former creative director and my closest ally, was demoted and reassigned to a brand compliance team. She called me the day it happened. "She's turning the company into a museum," Marla said. "Everything has to be beige or navy." They pulled the mosaic lighting design we made for Dubai, replaced it with gold trim. David Lang, our CFO and one of Elizabeth's longtime supporters, became her right hand. He was a quiet man, precise and calculating. Elizabeth trusted him more than anyone. But even he flinched when numbers dropped 3 quarters in a row. "We lost the soul," he admitted in an internal email I got forwarded through back channels. Anya Romero, head of guest experience and one of the few execs who liked both Elizabeth and me, tried to be the peacemaker. "You two are like hydrogen and oxygen," she told me when we met secretly in a cafe in Rome. "Separately, vital. Together, explosive." She wasn't wrong. Elizabeth's empire of ice. Elizabeth doubled down. She opened 5 new hotels in Asia in under a year, but they all followed the same rigid playbook. Muted tones, hushed music, minimalist interiors. Critics began calling them funerals with fancy pillows. Meanwhile, the press started noticing my absence. Forbes ran a piece. Where's Nathan Carter? The comments were vicious. Some blamed me for pushing boundaries. Others called Elizabeth a tyrant. She issued no statement. That was her style, silence like a blade. But the pressure was mounting, Wandersoul, my rise from ashes. I didn't wallow. Instead, I got to work. I moved to Lisbon with what was left of my savings and built something new. Wandersoul Retreats. The idea was simple, travel that made you feel. Not 5 stars, 5 senses, no uniforms, no scripts, just raw emotional experience. A place for people to rediscover Arnigoy loss, love, everything Elizabeth's hotels now avoided. I started with one villa in Portugal. By the end of the year, I had 7 locations. Investors knocked. Media adored us. Influencers begged to stay. Elizabeth stayed silent, but I know she watched. The board's rebellion. By Q3 of the following fiscal year, Carter Legacy's profit margins had dropped below projections. Guests reported cold service. Repeat bookings declined. The board grew restless. I wasn't in the room, but Marla told me what happened. Martin Cho, one of our original directors and a former mentor of Elizabeth, stood up during a quarterly review and said, "We didn't just lose Nathan, we lost what he gave us." Elizabeth reportedly left the room. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She returned 10 minutes later with a new strategy proposal in hand. She was relentless. Our mother, the quiet force. All the while, Catherine Carter, our mother, watched it unfold. She didn't take sides, but she invited me to her house more often, called to check in, sent me old photos of me and Elizabeth as kids, birthday parties, first hotel tours, the opening of our Tokyo branch. One night she said something I'll never forget. "You both think you're building legacies, but all I want is for my children to come home." The unexpected call. It came on a Wednesday. "Elizabeth Carter is requesting to meet you in person," said the voice on the other end. I laughed. She knows I have a phone, right? She said it had to be face to face. I met her in Vienna, neutral ground. We sat at a rooftop bar overlooking the Danube. Elizabeth wore gray. Of course. I wore white linen. Of course. "Wandersoul is impressive," she said, not looking at me. "So are your new resorts, cold but pretty. You always did love heat. You always did fear fire." And then silence. We sipped, until finally she said it. "I want to collaborate." I nearly dropped my glass. "On what?" "A hybrid space. One property, my infrastructure, your emotion, a test." "Why now?" Her answer was so quiet I barely heard it. "Because I miss my brother." From celebration to surveillance. Her first week as chairwoman, Elizabeth called a mandatory town hall. She spoke about stability, about structure, about restoring the Carter name to timeless prestige. I sat in the front row with my marketing team, arms crossed. Not one word about innovation, not one mention of storytelling, creativity, experience. And when she said the phrase emotional excesses of past campaigns, I knew exactly who she was referring to. I had been leading the global marketing department for 3 years at that point. Under my direction, we had launched campaigns that broke records, social engagement up 300%, hotel bookings linked to online experiences doubled. We had taken the Carter name and made it relevant again, personal. And yet, Elizabeth was reeling us back. At first, I tried to see her point. Yes, let's be more precise with our metrics. Yes, maybe the Paris drone show was too expensive. Yes, I'll scale back the influencer retreats. But then she started pulling creative approvals, canceling pilot programs, replacing our youngest brand strategist with a consultant who used words like dignity and classical alignment. And then came the worst insult. She installed a performance auditor in my department. Not operations, not finance, only me. I confronted her. Elizabeth, what the hell are you doing? She didn't even look up from her laptop. This isn't about you, Nathan. It's about safeguarding the company. You don't trust me. I don't trust impulses. You mean you don't trust me? She said nothing, and that silence said everything. A legacy or a cage? I stopped going to family dinners after that. I couldn't sit at the same table with her while pretending everything was fine. Mom noticed first. Why didn't Nathan come for Thanksgiving? She asked Elizabeth. He's busy, she replied. But Mom knew. We all knew. Elizabeth had built a wall, and I was outside it. The worst part? I missed her. I missed my sister. The girl who used to read my scripts in a British accent. The teenager who used to sit in my room after school and tell me what college was going to be like. She had become a monarch, and I had become a problem. And maybe I wanted to prove that the problem wasn't me. Maybe that's why I did what I did next. The spark before the storm. The idea came to me on a sleepless night in our flagship hotel in Los Angeles. The Love Experience, a 48-hour immersive event designed for couples to rekindle passion, celebrate connection, or even propose on the spot. Musicians, fireworks, sensory dining, emotional storytelling embedded into the room design. It wasn't just a marketing campaign. It was art, and it was everything Elizabeth hated: lewd, unpredictable, high risk, deeply emotional. I knew she would shut it down, so I didn't tell her. I launched it under a temporary subsidiary with internal funding from brand partners. It was a gamble, and it worked. Within 48 hours, we were the #1 trending topic on social media. Celebrities posted Instagram stories from our rooftop. One couple got married in the ballroom and live-streamed the whole thing. TikTok exploded with Love Escape tributes. But with the spotlight came the shadow. Sir Donovan Blake, our most valued VIP, complained about the noise. The board panicked over press images of confetti-covered hallways. A luxury blog accused us of turning a historic brand into a romantic amusement park. Elizabeth called me into her office the next morning. No assistants, no HR, just her. She handed me a single sheet of paper. Nathan, she said, you're fired. I looked at her and didn't recognize her anymore. This wasn't a sister protecting a legacy. This was a queen defending her crown. And that was the moment I realized something I'd never dared to say out loud. Elizabeth Carter and I weren't two halves of the same whole. We were two entire empires, and only one of us would be allowed to stay. If you ask anyone in the world of luxury hospitality who the Carter siblings are, they'll tell you the same thing. Two heiresses born into privilege, groomed for greatness. But what they don't tell you, what no glossy magazine or Forbes profile would dare print, is how deep the rift can be when ambition is shared by two people who love differently, lead differently, and live with completely opposite hearts. My name is Nathan Carter, and I once believed that my sister, Elizabeth Carter, was my partner in this legacy. I once believed that no matter how different we were, we shared a common goal: to honor our father's vision and build something even greater. But I was wrong. Elizabeth didn't just fire me from the family business. She cut the last thread between us just when I needed her most. And this is the story of how things fell apart between us and how we each chose to rebuild them in our own way. Elizabeth is 5.5 years older than me. That's not just a number. It's a generation when you're a sibling. She was in high school when I was learning to ride a bike. She applied to Harvard when I was still figuring out how to sneak Pop-Tarts without the nanny finding out. Ever since I can remember, Elizabeth has been the norm. She never missed a deadline. She played the piano like a prodigy. She was calm, cool, collected. She walked into every room with the grace of someone who already knew where she belonged. I, on the other hand, was the dreamer, the storyteller, the one who made family movies in our hotel lobby with Chester the Golden Retriever, wearing a bow tie and a waiter's hat. While Elizabeth stayed up all night studying for the SATs, I was outside choreographing flash mobs with the housekeeping staff. But we still worked. I think deep down I always believed that Elizabeth and I were two halves of a coin. She was the steel. I was the spark. She kept the walls straight. I filled them with color. We weren't competitors. We were complementary until we weren't. The rise of the chairman when our father, Charles Carter, stepped down as CEO of Carter Legacy Hotels. It was less a retirement and more of a coronation. There was only one successor anyone had considered: Elizabeth. At 35, she was qualified, a Harvard MBA, a decade of experience as COO. Her reputation was impeccable. Even the board, the same board that scoffed at anything too modern, bowed to her brilliance. No one questioned her promotion, not even me. I cheered from the sidelines. I hugged her, posted a congratulatory photo online with the caption, "Proud moment for my brother. The queen is crowned." But inside, something began to change. Elizabeth didn't hug me back that day. She nodded, professional, courteous, distant, as if she had drawn a line between herself and anyone who might take away the control she had waited her whole life to have.